Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Amazon has a very generous return policy, but even it has limits. According to a story from the Wall Street Journal, some folks have gotten banned by Amazon for apparently excessive returns. Alfred, do you find this story concerning?
I mean, I think it's concerning that there's no like straight up number. Like if you return like 20% of your orders or something like that, then we'll ban you or we'll give you a warning or anything like that. Because from the story, it seems like it's just like a straight up like, look, you've been returning too many things. We're going to ban you. So, I mean, I get it. I know that there's like cases of abuse out there where people will order things and then like just immediately return it or something like that. But, I think that people should know like at least like how much they're able to return, because I think
I totally disagree.
Really? You don't think people should have an idea?
If Amazon came out with a very explicit return policy, people would know they could hit that line, like one return prior to that or whatever, and then abuse it to that level, which is obviously why Amazon does not explicitly state a return policy.
I would at least
in that way.
appreciate a warning or something like that, though, because it's just like I'm kind of wary about how much I'm returning now. I mean, I don't return that much, but if I get something, I'm wary of, oh, wait, like, what if this is going to get me banned off of Amazon? Because there's a lot of implications of not being able to use Amazon.
Yeah. And the story mentioned something that I thought really was kind of lousy. Some guy had a Kindle and wasn't able to download new ebooks because he got banned from Amazon. The thing is that he did argue to get reinstated and did manage to get reinstated. It's also important to recognize that there are 300 million customers on Amazon, which means that even a tiny, tiny percentage of that getting banned, to me, that seems like well within the likelihood. It's a giant global company. Somebody's getting banned.
Yeah, I don't buy that just because it's so like when they have a massive amount, like even if it's a tiny percentage, that's still like millions of people. Like malware that hit like Gmail last year only affected 0.1% of Gmail users, but that was still like 100 million people.
Yeah, if there are millions of people getting banned off of Amazon, I would love to hear about that. So if you've gotten banned from Amazon, please email me or send me a tweet. I'd love to hear from you. Amazon is selling its facial recognition software to law enforcement, something that's raised concerns with the ACLU. Alfred, tell us a little bit more about this.
So this is Amazon's facial recognition program that it calls Recognition with a K. It's very inspiring.
Ooh la la.
But they've used it in amusement parks too to help like
find lost children,
yeah,
right?
Parents find like their lost kids or anything like that. But there's concerns about this technology being used by police departments, mostly because they obviously have way more resources than your local Six Flags or like Disneyland would have.
And they're worried that it could get abused or, it would track like protesters or suspicious activity, that kind of thing. But in general, is facial recognition software something that people should be worried about?
I mean, yeah, facial recognition software and police is something that, kind of has been available for a pretty long time now. But, privacy advocates and just people like concerned with like technology's failures have always raised issues with that. One of the bigger arguments is that facial recognition is not 100% right all the time. And if you're relying on this to, solve crimes, it does have a lot of dire consequences if it has even like a 1% error rate.
Yeah, definitely a good point. Mark Zuckerberg sat in yet another hearing, this time with the EU, all part of his continued fallout with Cambridge Analytica scandal. So was anything new at that EU conference?
Not by Mark Zuckerberg's answers, no. So the way that this conference this testimony worked, was that instead of him answering the questions directly one after another, they all asked the questions at the same time, and then he tried to answer them all within 25 minutes. It's basically trying to answer an hour of questions in 25 minutes, which... as it turns out, really doesn't work. Because
he tried to like bundle the answers.
He missed
to
a lot
amount.
of questions about Facebook being a monopoly, why Facebook shouldn't be broken up by EU legislation.
If you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alf Slager.
Shadow Profiles. Thanks for listening.
And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It takes me a minute to do these things. I'm running a lot of switches in here, Alfred.
It's cool.
Anyways, thanks for joining us.
The song.
You gonna dance more?
If you just keep them on in the background, sure.
You gonna entertain the folks at home for us?
No, only the ones at work.
Okay.
Only if you're watching this while you're in the office.
I wanted to mention something too. So the Wall Street Journal has written more than one story related to customer returns. They also had one last month about customer returns for brick and mortar stores. There's this company out there called Retail Equation that a lot of retailers use. And it basically tracks how many returns you do at a store, whether you had a receipt or not, and whether you like show up at the very last minute right before a store is about to close. They create this entire profile about people, and at some point you could get denied to be able to do a return if also you do excessive returns for those stores. So it's important to recognize that this isn't just about Amazon. There are a lot of return policies out there, and
I mean, I've definitely returned stuff on Amazon though. Like if they've shipped me like the wrong thing like a few times.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody's like probably returned stuff. I think the idea is like if you don't know the limit of it, then like I'm kind of like I feel like I'm like extra careful now about like what I'm ordering on Amazon just to make sure it's like what I wanted. But even like I've ordered like USB-C cables where like they sent me micro USBs. Twice. I told them they made a mistake.
Which is totally fair. I mean, if they screwed up the order or it's damaged or whatever, you absolutely are well within your right to return. And I think that like if you're a regular customer, you use Amazon regularly, then you are not at threat for getting banned. And even if you do get banned, the story mentions that you can get reinstated by arguing your case. There was one guy that emailed Jeff Bezos. It's jeff@amazon.com. After he did that, he was able to get reinstated. So to me, it seems like this is really focused on, like the really serious or excessive abusers, which with that many customers, I feel like, like, of course that happens. You know, somebody's doing that.
It seemed like, I mean, from the Wall Street Journal story, like from what I had read, it seemed like most of those folks were not like trying to abuse it or anything like that, or like the anecdotes that they had spoken to. So that's a thing. Like how does Amazon like determine that you're abusing it? Because from those cases that were being made, it seemed like they weren't abusing it.
Yeah, and a lot of it can be algorithmic, which means some people will get trapped that weren't supposed to be. And it's nice to see that people can get reinstated if you argue your case.
Yeah, so speaking of algorithmic errors, with that in mind, here's also this facial recognition program that we have. Use it to try to arrest people if you'd like.
I do want to throw out Amazon's comments because they gave us a comment specifically about the returns. They said there are rare occasions where someone abuses our service over an extended period of time. They went on to say that, we do this specifically to make sure that we can continue to have a generous returns policy for everybody. So that's at least their point that I wanted to throw out there. Anyway, let's get to questions.
Yes, let's take some questions. Right out the gate from Matthew Datcher, what does banning fully entail? Will it also kill a person's Prime membership, drop their Alexa, block them from video, or is this strictly applied to the shipping aspect?
That's a good point. I'm pretty sure it gets you thrown off of Prime for sure. As far as Alexa, the story doesn't mention whether folks have an Alexa that like just stops
Wouldn't it just
working.
get rid of everything you'd need an Amazon account for?
Yeah, but you would need your Amazon account for Alexa, which would be pretty miserable if you've like operating your entire smart home and then you get bounced.
I imagine because of the example you gave of the person with the Kindle and like they couldn't get ebooks anymore. I imagine kind of be the same scenario with like an Echo and all these like smart home stuff.
I guess in that regard, it's useful to consider that Apple probably won't ban you because what would they ban you from? Like you buy their hardware and then you use it. I guess
probably
maybe
like iCloud.
I guess so. They probably also have like some sort of returns policy too that people may or may not be abusing. I mean, like, you buy too many iPhones and return them really quickly. Like it doesn't surprise me that these companies aren't just like waiting for you to like return stuff constantly and won't ask any questions about it. So I don't know. That's a good question about Alexa, though. I'd love to look into that.
That is a good question. Here's another good one from Mike Shaw. Some people abuse returns, like buying a super awesome TV just before the Super Bowl, returning it afterwards. Restocking fees try to deter that, but it turns out to be just like renting for a weekend, which makes me beg the question, why hasn't Amazon just launched their own rent-a-center type situation? I feel like that might actually be a beneficial industry for them to get into.
It's a good question. I wonder if the shipping costs are just too much. Like if you were going to ship out a giant television and offer it at 2-day shipping and then have to take the return on it, you would have to charge a lot of money for it to actually work.
Also, are rent centers like still a thing? I always thought they just preyed on like people without money.
Yes and yes. So they are still a thing, and Amazon's such a big company that I also like. I wonder if they actually do have that service somewhere, and I just don't know about it.
Well, yeah, the facial recognition service was around for like more than a year, and then like most folks didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Another question from Srinjoy. I guess this might be related to the policy that allowed customers to keep the product and get a refund if the cost is below $10. I don't recall that. I've never experienced that myself.
Yeah, that's happened to me more than once. Like if I get like a children's book that wasn't the right one, or like cables or something like that that are really cheap, it actually is more cost effective for them to just eat the cost and not have you return it than actually like pay for you like to ship it and to return it. That's happened to me a handful of times. I always wonder if they're tracking how many times that actually does occur, and if at some point they're just going to be like, we see what you're doing, and just give it back to us because we don't want you abusing this policy.
Yeah, that's never been like an automatic thing for me. I've always had to like take it up with the seller. Like I'd have to send them a message saying like, you sent me this in black when I wanted it in like red or something like that, and then they'll just say, oh, just keep the black one, we'll send you the right one instead. So
yeah,
I'm sorry.
For me, I think it's a policy specifically from buying from Amazon, because they also have the marketplace where there are smaller sellers that sell on it, and they all have different types of return policies.
Sorry, I was knee-deep in coffee. Let's change gears over into Facebook. Srinjoy asks, did Zuckerberg mention anything about GDPR? I know Facebook is following their own policy revisions.
Yeah, so Zuckerberg mentioned that they're working toward it and they'll be compliant towards it, but he did not mention, which one of the members of parliament did call him out on, was the fact that they moved many of their users outside of their servers in like Europe, which like would mean that they're not really, like they're complying, but they're not really like complying, I guess is like the best way to say it. But he did talk about how Facebook is moving toward making sure that they're going to meet the requirements by the deadline, which is this Friday.
Can you give us like a quick TLDR? What's GDPR?
Yeah, it's the Global Data Privacy Regulations. What?
Isn't it general data?
Something like that. Yeah, but it's legislation that was put forward by the European Union. So this isn't something from like the US, but the idea is that every tech company now like has to basically change their privacy standards, and they have to make it so like you're much more aware of what data they're taking from you. Like their privacy policy has to be a lot clearer. That's why like everybody's been getting all these emails from companies basically, hey, we've updated our privacy policy. The idea being that, because like the EU is such a big like part of their user base, that they're just going to do it for everybody instead of like just only users in Europe or something like that.
Cool.
Let's switch back over to Amazon real quick, because I like this conspiracy theory from Alex Mitchell asking, I wonder if employees send wrong things out on purpose to hurt the company, since we hear some pretty bad stories coming from the front line at Amazon.
That's an easy way to get fired. I mean, like if that is an interesting conspiracy theory for sure. I don't know. Maybe
It's a witch hunt.
it's a witch hunt. I don't know.
No full-on response to that one? You're just going to let it hang?
I mean, I don't really think that is happening, but it's such a big company and they have 500,000 people. So to assume that like no employee has ever attempted to do something like that, I think would be incorrect. But that's really like such an easy way to get fired, is that like you're intentionally sending out the wrong stuff. Also at the warehouses, like so much of the stuff is automated and double checked that it would probably be pretty hard to do something like that, or to like, it would be pretty easy to get caught doing it. So anyway, that's my fuller answer.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah, I got a hot tip from my source at Amazon, Beth Bezos. He won't. I don't know where he is. I don't know like what level, how high up he is, or anything like that. But Beth Bezos is the primary. He's never been wrong to me. So
nice.
All right, back into Facebook. Also from Alex Mitchell. I don't understand Facebook being called a monopoly. I'm all against monopolies, but Facebook isn't a necessity, and it's completely free. I guess making money on ads does make a difference. Could you maybe explain this a little more, how Facebook qualifies as monopoly? When we said it before, it's not the only social network.
Yes. So the idea, and they've brought this up in U.S. Congress too, where it's the idea that like Facebook really doesn't have that much of a competitor. I mean, you can point to Twitter, but like you look at 2.2 billion people versus like
300 million.
yeah, on Twitter, and it's just like that's not really competition for them. I mean, like Mark Zuckerberg didn't even list Twitter as a competitor when they asked him to name like one competitor that was out there. Like he named companies like Google and Microsoft and Apple, which are not social networks. But you know, from his perspective, so his defense has always been, and he mentioned this at Parliament yesterday too, like essentially, you know, Facebook is not a monopoly. People on the average person uses 8 different apps to like communicate online. If you take a look at the App Store, the top 8 most popular apps, 3 to 4 of them, like if you're on iOS or on Android, are all owned by Facebook. So like, let's look at it. So there's Facebook, 3 billion people, WhatsApp, Instagram, arguably the second most popular social network, which Facebook owns, Facebook Messenger. So that's already like 4 really popular apps that Facebook owns. And I think that's the big argument that people make about Facebook being a monopoly, where yeah, and then now they're also trying to like take out Tinder with their new dating service. They tried to take out Craigslist with their marketplace. They own their, and they have the user base to do that. I mean, like look at what happened with Snapchat, which could have been one of their biggest competitors, and it was okay, let's just copy exactly everything what they do. And
well, Snapchat still exists though.
Yes.
And one of the arguments that Zuckerberg made, which I think is at least worth repeating, is that from a advertising and a digital advertising perspective, they're clearly not a monopoly. They obviously are a duopoly with Google in the United States, where they get a lot of digital advertising revenue, versus a bunch of other publishers and a bunch of other folks that do ads online. But there was at least one EU guy that was like, look, that's an understandable argument, except if you have a monopoly on cars, you can't say that like, oh, well, you could take a bike or a train. You know, that still means that you have a monopoly on cars, which I thought was an interesting argument.
yeah, I mean, I guess the argument, like if we're going with the car analogy here, yes, Facebook doesn't have an analogy. I mean, it doesn't have like a monopoly on all cars. Like they don't have a monopoly on all advertising. But like, imagine if like the most popular car company in the world also had like owned the most popular bike and train company too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the other things that I thought was interesting that was mentioned in the hearing was they like somebody posited this idea. It would be like, would you think it was a good deal? He did not answer this question, by the way. They were like, you think it was a good deal if we forced you to spin off WhatsApp? Like you no longer own or control that company. Like he obviously didn't even attempt to touch that one. But at the same time, you saw all like the congressional hearings. I didn't, but was there like a big difference between what the European, like what the tenor of that conversation was? Because it looked like a lot of them were talking about monopoly and breaking up Facebook.
It was
And I
really
wonder if
frustrating.
Congress did that.
It was like it was. I wish they had the members of the European Parliament asking those questions with the U.S. Congress format, because like in this one, it was like a lot of good questions, but he doesn't have the time to answer it. Whereas in the U.S. Congress, like hearings, it was a lot of dumb questions, and then he had to answer every single one of them. And it was like, okay, well, that was a massive waste of time. They were both like massive wastes of time for different reasons.
Cool. That's good to hear.
So like one was like dumb questions, and then the other one was dumb answers. So,
And before somebody in the comments trolls with, this show is a massive waste of time.
Oh, cool.
it's
Did we
only
actually
4
get
minutes.
that comment?
So
No. Just it's the rules of in before. You got to learn your internet.
Oh, well, I haven't figured that part out yet. But okay, thank you.
We are winding down. Let's take one more question and talk about recognition. Honestly, I thought that was some like new Russian initiative or something when I saw
Multi-pass.
it. Yeah.
that's actually my wake word. So I'm gonna go off and do some spy stuff now. See.
Oh, wow. Okay. Don't kill me first.
Freight car. Apex says that most law enforcement companies have their own very advanced facial recognition software. So is this really a concern, and how does this kind of supersede what they're doing at the local level?
I think it's a bigger concern because it's from Amazon. The idea that like this is a mega like giant company that's helping supply it at the same time that they're also, you know, hey, put this camera in your home that like we'll tell you how great your outfit is. Like they're not using any of the echo data or anything like that, but I do think it strikes a chord with a lot of people that already have concerns about like the echo like listening in their homes and things like that. Which
you got to talk to Amazon though, and they told you that the information is siloed, right? There's not like one central database.
No. Yeah. So all the data that's in there, like if I'm, you know, the Orlando Police Department, I'm not going to be able to match up photos of like potential suspects that like say police in Oregon has. If you use recognition, it matches only the photos that you upload yourself. That being said, though, like, and the ACLU has made this argument too, there's always like a potential for breaches.
Totally.
Especially with Amazon Web Services too, where like that has been a major source of breaches from like companies over the last like 5 years now. And the idea is every time that happens, it's like it's never Amazon's fault. Because it's not like Amazon themselves got breached. It's the person that set up this AWS like cloud server that got breached. So that's like another like major concern with this too.
All right, I think that's going to just about do us for time today. We got one more episode coming up tomorrow. You guys back for this one, or are we getting Joan on here sometime soon?
We'll invite Joan. Joan will come back. What, you getting sick of us? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
All right, fine. Okay.
Anyways.
Well, all right. The 359 is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher.
Smooth.
I didn't even wait for the music.
We rehearse every day.
Hey, what? Can I do the outro?
We have rehearsals for this.
Take two and
no.
action.
And wait for the music and go. The 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, and of course
The Amazon Echo.
The Amazon Echo, and also, of course, CNET.com.
CNET.com.
And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.